Welcome to If You're Not First, You're Last, episode 11. This is our 11th episode. Next one will be our 1 year anniversary. Very excited for that. I am in my writer's retreat in Colorado, and Virginia's in a spa in Stad, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's good
and
song.
our, yes, good, can't be Stad.
No one who's been there.
And our subject today is a very interesting actor, one of my favorites, Phillip Seymour Hoffman. A little background information on before we get into our top tens. He was born in Rochester, New York, July 23rd, 1967. Died February 2nd, 2014. Really ruined my birthday that year. I'm going to say that right now. Just 9 days later. He went to Tisch. His mother was a lawyer. His father ran a travel agency. And before we get into his films, he has two Tony nominations, one for A Long Day's Journey into Night, which I would have killed to see him in, absolutely, in the Jason Robards part, and one for True West, a show that I know more about than I should. It famous was him and Philip Seymour Hoffman. It was him and Talladega Nights. What's his name?
John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly. And every night they would switch roles. It was very famous. They would switch roles every night.
I would have loved to see that.
Yes.
I like True West.
True West is the main again. If we ever do Sam Shepard, we will definitely be talking about True West. So as we begin, one of the things we're going to talk about this episode more than any other actor or performer we've ever worked with here, he is at his best in supporting roles. As much as yes, he won Best Actor for Capote, and he was up for Doubt, and he is an amazing leading actor. When he is given 15 minutes to shine in a movie, he destroys better than any actor of his generation. And he is such an amazing character actor that was able to become a leading actor. And it's kind of interesting because as we talk about our top tens, at least half of them are in supporting roles where he literally had in some of these movies maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. All right, so Virginia, go ahead and give me your top 10.
All right, I love him. As you know, it's Freddie in Talented Mr. Ripley. That is my very favorite role of his.
Yes.
The snob who can see through Tom.
Yes.
The DJ in Almost Famous.
Wonderful.
I like him in The Savages, which is a leading role one.
Yes.
And has a Sam Shepard reference.
Underrated film.
It's so good. I just saw it recently. I was telling Jeff, we went out of town for a bit, so I just ran through the library, grabbing every Philip Seymour Hoffman thing I could, and the one I put on hold. And the thing is a lot of his movies are over 2 hours long, so it took some time to get through them, and I really enjoyed The Savages, although it had a lot of material that is really coming true, especially in our family. Like it was a very familiar territory. Capote. And then some of his other side ones. He has a small role as a bartender in The Invention of Lying.
Yes.
Which he was just so friendly and affable, like almost the complete opposite of so many of his roles where he's a little combative and,
It was similar to his Boogie Nights role. It was very similar to his Boogie Nights character.
He was not as creepy in Invention Lying as he was in Boogie Nights. And I have to mention his role in Twister, which is a family favorite. Let's see, what else? The butler, I guess he is in Big Lebowski, which is another variation of the goofy, yeah.
Yes.
In between the bartender and the Boogie Nights character.
Yeah.
And then the movie that when I started it, I thought this would be a one and done, but it actually became a film that I love because I couldn't stop thinking about it. Schenectady, New York.
Yes. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. And that's what I have. I never really have a top 10, but those are my top ones.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to start off with Savages as my number 10. Magnolia's 9. Again, I'm looking at this not as my favorite films of his, but as my favorite performances of his. So I want to kind of be clear here. Like, this is strictly the performances I go back to. Like, when he passed away, the first thing I watched was Almost Famous. So that's my number 1. But so these are really based on how I felt about him in a movie, as opposed to how good. Because again, if we're talking purely movies, Magnolia would be like the top 3. But okay, so Talented Miss Ripley is 8. 7, Boogie Nights. 6, The Master, which has the
Didn't see that
greatest
one.
swear word in the history of film. If you've never seen The Master, I highly
I
recommend it,
haven't.
because
Okay.
he calls someone a pig fuck in this perfect. It's the perfect like way he says it's amazing. 5 is Doubt. Just a crowd pleaser, Doubt. If you've never seen Doubt and you're looking for something that'll really cheer you the F up, watch Doubt. It's just, fantastic. 4, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. Unbelievable film. Not as much watch, but him, Ethan Hawke, and the great Marissa Tomei, and Albert Finney, one of my favorite actors. 3, Charlie Wilson's War. We're gonna talk about
Oh
that.
yeah, he is.
2, Capote, and 1, Almost Famous. Almost Famous is just a good time to see that movie. It was right when I was graduating college. And he's actually playing Lester Bangs, who is an actual reporter, newspaper, magazine, article writer of the 70s of some note, who is kind of this like very realistic person.
He wrote an article. I kept seeing him as a
Yes,
DJ, a radio guy.
but
I
he is,
think
yeah,
I got
well,
that.
his first scene is in a radio studio, so you're right about that. He's being interviewed at a local San Diego station, which is where
That's
he
right.
meets him. So that's totally understandable. Um, that movie again. It's the first. Literally, I heard he died. The first thing I did was watch that film, and that scene on the phone when the kid thinks he's messed it up, and he can't. He's never gonna succeed, and he just talks to him about life is about moments you spend with someone else who's uncool. And he said it's just the greatest line. He's just the greatest person to him. Like their first scene is so great together because he keeps trying to say, "Okay, kid, I'll talk to you later," and then they keep talking, and like they end up like a diner and stuff, and like just like the kid's high. He is un. It's just he's so human in most of his movies. Again, I mentioned my love of the James Lipton Inside Actor Studio before, but his Inside Actor Studio is nuts because James Lipton finds him to be a very sexy actor. He says between Boogie Nights and Happiness, which is a movie we'll spend very briefly on in this podcast.
I'm like, those are the least.
He's like, James Lipton, of course, who I can't help but talk in his voice. He goes, "I believe you are the sex symbol of the 21st century." And Hoffman just looks at him like you're stupid, like you're the dumbest person alive. But he is, again, when we talk about his films, and again, we're going to kind of go through his process. He is so good in supporting roles. Like he is your favorite person in those movies. Like a movie that I'm not a Ben Stiller person. I do not like his movies, but Philip Seymour Hoffman in Along Came Polly is unbelievable. He is so funny. The basketball scene where he's just throwing up shots out of nowhere. He's so sweaty in that scene, and then like Ben Stiller comes to see him in Jesus Christ Superstar. He just takes over for another actor in it. Just he's an actor, and he's completely. It's Phil Seymour's having the time of his life because again he was so known for doing these dark, sad movies that he got a chance to do this straight up comedy, and he's so good in it. Like he absolutely steals that movie, and he's like I guarantee you his choice of costumes to look like Don Johnson from Miami Vice was absolutely his. It was absolutely his. It's one of the most amazing things. You mentioned Big Lebowski, which is it is my favorite movie going experience of all time is Big Lebowski, because again, you have to remember this came out right after Fargo, which is their biggest, like most like national hit. It's the biggest movie that the Coen Brothers ever had was Fargo. So the biggest audience they would ever have for a new movie would be the movie that was next, and they chose to do a pot comedy that has porn stars in it, and like it's insane. There's dream sequences with Saddam Hussein just like a year after the Iraq War, and it's insane. There were at least 15 walkouts when I saw the Big Lebowski, because I looked at the audience, I'm like going, oh, these aren't Coen Brothers people. These aren't like Raising Arizona, Hudsucker Proxy people. These were Fargo people. They were expecting another Fargo. And it's a detective movie, so it's kind of in the same genre, but then you just have like, just complete insanity. The craziest movie the Coen Brothers ever did. and you just
it's
see
a great one.
it's amazing, and he's so good in it because he plays this like he's a character from a 1950s movie, but he still calls him the dude. Like he never calls him Lebowski. He says, "Dude, we have a problem." Like that's just my
Yeah.
favorite thing about him. What was your first movie you saw of his that you remember?
I think it might have been Talented Mr. Ripley. If it wasn't that, it was Big Lebowski.
Hmm.
I want to say I actually saw in the theater too, and it was three generations of my family that went to see it.
Right.
And there was definitely a half and half of who liked it and who didn't like it. And so it was like, I know me and at least one other cousin, we're like, this is fantastic. This
Yeah.
is funny. And some of the older members, and they're not people who are like easily like, oh, clutching their pearls. They were just like, it just felt like a very Hollywood inside joke. We weren't, this isn't what we were exactly what you were saying. We weren't expecting this. And they like Raising Arizona and stuff, but they just felt like it was a very almost like something that they made for their friends or people they know. Like they were, and I was just like, this is absurd.
Well,
So
just
definitely that is a polarizing movie, but I feel like I saw Talented Mr. Ripley first.
Talented Mr. Ripley was probably my third. I think I want to say I saw Lebowski before that, and I saw
Or wait.
And Son of a Woman
No,
as well.
hold on.
You
I
just
might
saw
be
Twister
wrong
before
there because I'm actually looking at the timeline. Okay, when did Talented Mr. Ripley come out? Okay,
that.
no, Boogie Nights was my first one. Boogie
Okay.
Nights or Twister, looking at it.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I feel like I didn't watch much of Twister when it first came out. It's definitely one I've watched over the years.
Right.
Oh wait, but then he did Leap of Faith. I can't count Leap of Faith because I don't remember him in Leap of Faith, but I do remember Boogie
Right. Boogie Nights,
Nights.
and it's interesting that you bring up those two movies because they're very connected in a certain way. They're both these kind of indelible supporting character roles. Again, like I said, what I remember him for is not the lead roles as much as Capote is a movie that I was obsessed with. But like when you watch him in Talented Mr. Ripley, I think we all have that experience of you have a certain friend group, whether it be for school or for something, or like a certain friend group that when you hang out with them, everything's great until one person shows up, and then it's just the me show, and that's what
and that's
I think,
what he does.
I said before the show, I think the funniest thing about Talented Mr. Ripley is we don't like him. We don't like Freddie because he doesn't like a serial killer.
Freddie is a snob, so
Yeah.
that he's the kind of guy who's looking. Because it all starts out at first that he doesn't like Tom because he's like he sees him as this poor, like almost like Dickie's little project. Like,
Yeah.
oh, here's this. He's not even related. He's not even like a poor relation. He's just this little scrub who's getting all this free stuff, and he's not he's not very interested. Oh, he can play the piano, great. And he kisses your ass, Dickie, great. But then as it goes on, he's the only one who seems to see like, no, there's something. This guy is odd. He's creepy. He's spying on them while they're in the room. There's something off.
Yeah.
So he basically now has a reason. He never needed it before, but it's like maybe he actually, besides being a snob, he can tell.
It's a Patricia Highsmith novel, and she has those characters that are kind of these snobby people, but also they see the reality of things. Like I think of like Rebecca, the Rebecca Del Moria novel, where the guy who sleeps with Rebecca, the cheater, is very much a filter. But he has the coolest entrance in that movie because they're at a cool little cafe in Italy, and he shows up in a car. He just drives up, leaves the car there, and just jumps out of the car, and then says hello to his good friend. And it's just one of the coolest. It's just a great entrance.
He's literally like Chuck from Gossip Girl. I am 99% sure was based on Freddie.
I would highly believe that. That's a great call. Great call. And again,
I will say too, Patricia Highsmith also did Strangers on a Train. Besides that thing of the snob who can tell, she also has there's a huge hidden homosexuality theme. It was written during a time where you could be hospitalized or killed for that. Yeah. But there's always that undercurrent, and it's excellent writer, very tense.
In Ripley, it's literally an overcurrent because again, I love that movie. I don't know when we will talk about that again because I don't think it's the first or last for anyone. maybe Magella, but the end of that movie is both tragic and sick, but also one of the saddest things ever, because he has a chance to have this great romantic, beautiful life with this man who truly loves him, Christopher Northup, who's an amazing actor in the film, and he chooses to be Ripley instead. He chooses. He sees Kate Blanchett again. What a cast! I mean,
it is an excellent. I love when Kate Blanchett does the upper class New England accent. It is a gem.
It's amazing. Instead of choosing like this perfect life where he could be free of he's beaten the murderers, and he has this chance to have this beautiful life with his amazing man who loves him. And Kate Blanchett shows up, and he decides, I would rather be Dickie. I would rather be the fake person than the real me. And that last scene where Northrop is saying all these things that Tom is, and then he says Tom is crushing me, and you realize he's murdering this man because he would rather be the fake version of himself, and that's just it's one of the saddest things of any movie, but it's a beautiful, beautiful movie if you've never seen it.
Yeah, you need to see it. Also, I'll do two more things, and I know because I know this really isn't a first or last, and this is more in the books. But there's actually at least two more sequels, which I read years ago. And there's a French version that I believe was made before the Hollywood one.
Correct. Yes.
And then there is someone rewrote the plot and updated it to a novel recently. Mm-hmm. Called Social Creature.
Oh,
and it's a female one. And I think it might be listed as a young adult. They're set in their 20s. I've read it twice. It's really. I'm not going to say this person is a wordsmith, but it's about social media. It's basically Talented Mr. Ripley, but it's two women in the age of Instagram and everything. And it is actually, I think, a very good updated version of
That's fantastic. And of course, there is another Ripley movie starring the great John Malkovich as Ripley. It's a later story called Ripley's Game. I highly recommend it. It kind of flew under the radar. So around the same time as
this, the second novel, right?
Around the same time he did Boogie Nights, which again, the Paul Thomas Anderson second one. He was in Heart 8 as well, so he's done, at this point, 5 movies. Well, that's the end of it. He's done 5 movies with Paul Thomas Anderson. Boogie Nights, Scotty is the male gaze in that movie is through the eyes of Scotty. Like the way he looks the first time he sees Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch at the pool party, you just see that he clearly loves him. And again, to play this character that's such a sycophant. Like my favorite thing is because people often talk about how Boogie Nights is a family movie. It's a movie about a family that they just happen to do porn. The facial expressions on Philip Seymour Hoffman's face when Marky Mark and Burt Reynolds have their big fight, when the family's breaking up, he has his hands over his mouth. And he's so upset. He's like, Mommy and Daddy are fighting, and I don't know what to do. It is unbelievable how good he is. And that's all him. Like, there's 20 people in that scene. Julianne Moore, Heather Grant, everyone's in that scene. And he's just in the background, just a 7-year-old, and his parents are getting divorced. Like, it's like that thing in movies where, like, the parents go, we're getting divorced, and one of the kids is just heartbroken. It's him.
Kids are always like, one's angry and one's like, yeah, you're right. He's just no. No,
it's so beautiful. Like if you watch that scene again, just for Philip Seymour Hoffman, it is unbelievable. So shortly after that, he does his third Paul Thomas Anderson film, which is Magnolia, which is a movie I saw in the theater. Another one that had several walkouts. And his part is mainly to do with Jason Robards, who's an actor I think he probably jumped at a chance to work with because, again, they both did Long Day's Journey Tonight. They're very similar. Him and Jason Robards. He never got a chance to do those later Jason Robards parts. Like, if you ask me, I've seen his Long Day's Journey Tonight, and I've seen his The Iceman Cometh, thanks to Playhouse 90s, those kind of great 1950s. Let's watch a whole play on TV. Like, we got to do that because of him. And they have these. There's a 3-hour behind the scenes of Magnolia, where Jason Robards and him just have the greatest conversations, and you just see that Philip Seymour Hoffman is living in this moment of just having this chance. He has an amazing scene with Julianne Moore in that movie. Another one with Tom Cruise. Again, Tom Cruise. I've only seen 2 of his movies in theaters in the last 25 years. But it's his best performance. He should have won the Oscar for it. He is phenomenal in that film. And again, it's a movie about it's like 12 different people whose lives interconnect, and he plays a male nurse. And he's got just some really interesting little scenes in that movie. He's so good, and you give him 5 minutes, he's gonna kill in that 5 minutes. And he's still in that thing again. Almost Famous came next. He's still in this thing where he doesn't get lead roles yet, but then he happens on the fact that someone wrote an amazing script about Truman Capote, and he's the perfect person to play Truman Capote, and he wins the Oscar for it. It is a performance where I can't help but do the voice when I talk about it.
Go ahead.
There are 2 scenes in that movie that I love more than anything, which is he's on the train with Harper Lee. Again, Harper Lee and Truman Capote grew up together in one of the great weirdnesses of the world. They grew up in the same Alabama town. The best friend in To Kill a Mockingbird is Truman Capote. That's that character. And they're on the train, and this African-American bellhop on the train comes up and says how much he loved A Christmas in Alabama, like one of his short stories. And
Marie.
he's just listening to him, and he's just sitting there, and he just goes, "Thank you," like that. And then as he leaves, Harper Lee goes, "You paid that man." And in this giant, he pauses for a second, then he just goes, "How did you know?" Like, it's an amazing movie. The weirdness of having 2 Capote movies out the same year, and one being that good, the other one being just okay. He is phenomenal in that movie, and he deserved that Oscar. There's no question about it. It's one of the ones that I'll say hands down he deserved that Oscar. And again, another scene is he's at a party in New York after the book comes out. This is about the writing of In Cold Blood. One of it invented a genre. We would not have podcasts about true crime. We would not have documentaries about true crime if it was not this book. It is the definitive book, and he wrote it about this murder in Kansas. And he has his scene where he's at a party. He's talking about William Baldwin with a friend. It's just like this very bustling New York City apartment scene, kind of like, and he's just talking about, William Baldwin. And then this guy walks up to him and goes, "Your book terrified me." He goes, "Okay, all right." He goes, it terrified me, like just like that. And then he leaves, and Capote just goes, "Well, come back," like that. It's just, I don't think, he's the closest we'll ever get to Oscar Wilde. And again, if you watch him on the late versions of Johnny Carson, he was this amazing figure. And in fact, right now, not right now because of the strike, but at some point in the very near future, the 3rd season of Rivals on FX is coming out, and it's about the ladies who lunch, which is
it's Feud. It's Feud.
Yeah, Feud. Sorry.
And I know, okay, because so I have 2 Capote biographies. I have one that's on standard form, and then I have the one that Plimpton did that's an oral biography, like how James Stein did Eating. And then there's this fantastic book called Swans of Fifth Avenue, which is about Truman and his group. I mean, this was one that I bought. I checked out the library so many times, I just bought my own copy.
Right.
And I loaned it to my mom, and then she loaned it to my brother. And then my brother was like, "Guess what's the next season of Feud is?" And he showed me, and I was like,
I think
Ryan Murphy, are we like of the same mind? Are we?
I want to say Walt and I adore Walt. Walt is like my brother as well. I think we texted you within 10 minutes of each other about.
I think he did.
And it's about the saddest thing. And again, as amazing as Truman Capote was, he's a brilliant writer. Breakfast at Tiffany's. He was hungry for fame and success in a way that very few writers of his era were. Gore Vidal was not into this kind of thing. He was beloved and he was taken care of very much so. When he was not rich, when he did not have anything, he was taken care of by the society women of New York, who just adored, much like women today adore having that one gay friend. to the society women in New York at the time, Truman Capote was their one gay friend, and he betrayed every single one of them by writing.
I mean, basically, it was what Truman did in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, Dominic Dunn was the next follower, and they had a rivalry because to the day he died, Dominic Dunn asserted that Truman Capote stole the black and white ball from him because Truman had gotten his and his wife's black and white ball like just a few years before, but it was on the West Coast.
Right.
So, I mean, I get what you're getting off track, but it's just like Phillip Seymour Hoffman just played all these interesting people and did things with interesting people, and then you get excited because you're like, it's just wonderful to talk about.
It's an amazing article. You can it's one of the early Vanity Fair perfect pieces. It really is. It's just this amazing piece where he very not well hides the identity of these society women that again who took care of him.
Bad. You can check it out. It's in because he never wrote another book again after.
No. He was a celebrity.
Full Blood.
He became a celebrity.
Short stories. Yeah, he just became a personality. And so he talked about this book he was going to write for years, and then you can get it. It's called Answer Prayers. It's basically an unfinished novelette. And it's 4 chapters. They seem to have nothing to do. And then the last one, it's like lunch at the whatever the name of the cafe was.
Yeah.
And it's it basically is 2 women having lunch, and one of them telling all the dirty secrets of the other. And I mean, it was done to a point where all these women read this and they knew who they were. They knew who was the person that was supposed to be talking. They knew who the husband was. And it was just like, and he was so confident that, they loved him so much. He would, nothing like this would have, he would be through it. They would find it funny, but no one actually wants all their secrets to be put
and
out.
We're talking embezzlement. We're talking secret abortions. We're talking lesbian affair. It's horrendous what he did to these women, and
it's really. And I know it can be like, so what? They're rich, but these were their husbands were rich usually.
Yeah,
and maybe they came from a wealthy thing, but that's not even the point. Like you can eat the rich all you want, but at the end of the day, they had a friend that went and betrayed them.
Yeah,
and that's wrong. No matter what's in your bank account, like they didn't do anything but being to this guy, but he went and he went around sat in the back, and. Of course, this is all way after the Capote thing, but I think it would have been interesting to see Phillip Seymour Hoffman play him in those years.
Yeah, no, it's those years where he's got the scarf and the hat, and he's just doing Dick Cavett every 3 weeks, and Johnny Carson, and he's, he does occasional the Game Show Network. If I see that Truman Capote is one of the guests, I'm going to watch because he's just. Like I said, he's the closest thing we'll ever to Oscar Wilde. Like he really is. It's like It's like if you were a TV watcher in the late '60s, early '70s, and Paul Lynde or Truman Capote was in the show, you're there. You're like, this is going to be great because he just had no. So again, Capote put him on a different level. All of a sudden, he's a leading man. He has these leading parts, but again, he still chooses to do these smaller bit pieces. Again, he does in this time period. He does the again. There's only 2 Tom Cruise movies I've seen in the last 25 years. One being Top Gun 2, and the other one being his Mission Impossible, which he's phenomenal in. He's this chubby, redhead, he's not great looking, and he's playing this Mission Impossible villain where if you look at the Mission Impossible, the Mad Michelson and these, there's and he comes across as just this guy who's vindictive. Like he's just so perfect in it. And again, I've seen 2 Tom Cruise movies in theaters, but I have not paid to see a Tom Cruise movie in 25 years. I want to stress that. I will go to the theater and I will pay for a ticket to another movie and I will ask for the manager. And I'll say, this is a ticket to Shrek 2, but I'm going into the theater to see Mission Impossible because I won't give Tom Cruise money. And they go, so this is how committed I am to this. But, Capote led to some really interesting character parts. And then he had 2 more leads that kind of defined his career. One being Doubt, where he goes toe-to-toe with Meryl Streep in an amazing play. And he is phenomenal in that. And again, his ability to yell is unbelievable. And the best scene in the movie, and I still say this to this day, is the scene that made Viola Davis a star. Is Viola Davis who's the mother of the child who is either was or was not molested, depending on your opinion of the movie. And Meryl Streep is going after this very popular priest, played by Phillip Seymour Hoffman, who she believes molested this boy. And Meryl Streep goes to the mother, and Viola Davis says basically, even if he did, he loves my son. He takes care of my son. So I'm not going against him, because for the first time in my son's life, he feels loved. And it's an incredibly sour scene. And again, I've watched it enough times. It's one of those movies like Gone Baby Gone, where I go back and forth on what the ending means. Because I would love for Philip Seymour Hoffman to be innocent and Meryl Streep to be this monster who simply does not like the way this man chooses to be a priest. At the same time, there is something missing in that human being.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you don't want to believe it because I love Philip Seymour Hoffman, but part of me believes he absolutely molested that child. And that's the beauty of the movie. That's the beauty of the play, and it's why it won the Tony and it won every award that year. And it's to watch him go toe to toe with the greatest female actress living is an unbelievable thing. And Amy Adams, who again him and Amy Adams have this relationship in other movies, to see the two of them have that first spark before they did The Master is unbelievable. And then after that comes The Master, which is his fourth Paul Thomas Anderson film. He did Punch Drunk Love, again another great supporting role, where he just gets to yell incessantly on a phone. If you've never seen Punch Drunk Love, he's amazing in it. It's the first time someone tried to make Adam Sandler a serious actor, and it kind of works. And I don't think his next one would have been as successful as it was without
next one.
The Safdie brothers film that was out a couple years ago. This Is How I Win, the Diamond movie.
Oh my God, I couldn't even finish that. That was such a stress film.
Oh yeah,
I got so stressed out. I just stopped at one point, and I haven't been back to watch it. And I was watching it like when it came out.
Yeah. So again, he goes back and forth between being a leading man and then back to being a character actor. He has all these great little performances, and then he does his leading role with, in my mind, the best screenwriter of the 21st century or late 20th century, Charlie Kaufman, the man who wrote Being John Malkovich, who did Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And then he does, and he also, and without, I want to talk about this movie forever, but I can't. He does the one with Nicolas Cage, where he plays twins. Gosh darn it. Adaptation. Unbelievable.
It's based on?
Well, yeah. So basically, Charlie Kaufman, after doing Being John Malkovich and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, he got carte blanche. The studio said, whatever you want to do, we'll pay for it. He says, I really would like to adapt The Orchid Thief. When me and Virginia were in the book business together, The Orchid Thief was a monster. It was a giant book, and it's about Florida, and it's about a man who steals orchids, and it's Susan Orlean.
It's a ghost orchid, I think.
Yes.
It's like a really rare one.
Yes, Susan Orlean, and Charlie Kaufman spends a year. He can't. This is so he instead writes a movie about him trying to write the movie adaptation. At some point, he decides, I have to have a twin brother. So the script is written by Charlie and his fake brother. It says the script, when he won an Oscar for Best Script, both of them got an Oscar, but only he shows up on stage. and it's an amazing movie. It's the best Nicolas Cage performance besides Leaving Las Vegas.
I can't imagine a better Florida. I mean, there are better Florida movies, but I'm like, that is just such a Florida thing.
Oh, Chris Cooper.
To be like, I'm going to take this story, but I'm going to make something completely different and just make it absurd. I mean, it is. Yeah. That is some.
What's beautiful, besides, of course, the great Brian Cox coming in and yelling as the screenwriting teacher, just one of the greatest minutes of movie ever.
Sorry. Yeah,
the guy who is as soon as his twin brother, who's an awful writer, and he's like this very cliche writer, as soon as his brother gets involved in the story of The Orchid Thief and adaptation, it goes crazy. Like, it becomes that they're sniffing orchids. They're like using orchids as cocaine, and there's drug dealers, and there's car chases, and all these things just because his fake twin brother is involved in the movie. So this is the movie. So he's Troy Kaufman.
This is the screenwriter.
Yes, and then again, he's got carte blanche after this. This is his third. He's won 2 or 3 best scripts. He's amazing, and he gets a chance to do this movie called Synecdoche, New York, where he chooses Phillip Seymour Hoffman to be the lead, and it's beautiful, it's brilliant, but it's insane. It is literally Phillip Seymour plays a director who wants to make a play of a town, and he recreates a town size for size. It's not smaller. The play takes place on a set that is the same as Synecdoche, New York, and it's just Charlie Kaufman is an absolute genius. It's so insane.
It's actually when I started watching it, I actually was like, oh no, because it starts out, he's middle-aged, his wife's an artist, he's like a community theater play director, and there's a thing like about just this mundaneness of life, I guess. Like, go talk to the doctor about the color of your bowel movements and make sure it's on illness, and the plumbing breaks and this, and I was just like, oh man. And then he's going, and I'm like, is this going to be a whole movie about this guy's marriage and him being a middle class man? I cannot deal with it. And then as it kept going, like I would be texting like you or my brother throughout it. I'm like, I don't know. And I was even like, oh, this is becoming like a new theater. It's like that era. And then by the end, I'm like, because I was like, okay, I like it, but I'll probably never watch it again. And then by the end, I'm like, oh my God, I think and like I kept thinking about it, and the more I thought about it, I'm like, I think I really like this movie. I really do want to watch it again. Actually, like I want to watch it and watch it from a different angle, because on the outside, it's just he's making this play. He gets a grant to make a play. His wife goes to Berlin with their 5-year-old daughter. And then it's the way that they work with time, because you think it's only been a month and he's working on the play.
No.
But next thing you know, he goes to Berlin. His wife had been divorced, and she's with this woman, and then the daughter's like 12. But and then he sees her again, and she's doing like this new like artist installation. She's a grown woman, and this, like, I always got the impression this woman friend of his wife's basically helped alienate the family, and I'm not too confident on her relationship with the daughter either. And he finds this journal that his 5-year-old had left at home, and through the years, it's like he's reading it, but he can't really be reading it, so he's imagining the life. So basically, this whole thing, it is again what I was at first worried about it, how it was.
Right.
But it's also this thing of how you can get so wrapped up in something like, one day, which I find myself like, one day I'll do this and one day I'll do this, and he's so busy with that one day and I have to make it perfect that he actually can't do anything. He never really finishes anything. He hasn't finished the play. He never has a complete relationship with any of his partners or kids. He never really gets fully involved. He has someone who this woman that he had a relationship with, who's buying this house that's eternally on fire outside, and it doesn't occur, it's almost like a symbol, like, we'll get her out of it. Stand up, do something. He's almost like a supporting character in his own life.
Right.
And it's such an incredible, and I really did start out going, oh no, this looks like a very, oh God, why are all his movies like 2.5 hours long? I don't know if I can do 2.5 hours of someone's midlife crisis. And then I end up loving it at the end.
It's amazing. So then he does a master again with Paul Thomas Anderson, where it is the founding of Scientology. And it was a very dangerous film at the time, and how close it was to the founding of Scientology. And, is Tom Cruise going to like show up on set and burn the film and, all these things. And it's an amazing performance. Again, it's his 3rd best actor nomination for that film. It's him and the great Joaquin Phoenix and Amy Adams. And it's weird for the actor that he is. I've seen him either perform sex, have sex, or someone manipulate sex on him more than almost any actor I've ever seen in my life. Because there's Happiness, which is an insane movie. Do not see Happiness, people.
Yeah.
It is disturbing as all get out. And then Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, the movie starts with him having sex with Marissa Tomei, and it's just full on his ass, and it's just like I've I've seen this. It's a great movie. Interesting enough, his next two movies we're to talk about have one thing in common: they are legendary directors' last films. Two of the greatest, in my mind, two of the top 10 greatest directors of all time, Sidney Lumet and Mike Nichols, died shortly after the finishing of these films. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, which is an amazing kind of crime. Basically, it's like a scumbag movie. How scumbaggy are you? And it's Ethan Hawke and him play brothers, and it is unbelievable. Albert Finney's unbelievable, and Marissa Tomei. This is kind of the beginning of the Marissa Tomei renaissance. That kind of second era of Marissa Tomei, like the Spider-Man
and the wrestler.
The Wrestler, just unbelievable this film. And then the next one which is a movie I adore more than anything, Charlie Wilson's War, which we'll kind of talk about in the If You're Not First, You're Last. But it's my favorite. It's my third favorite performance of his, and it's the one that I probably mimic the most. There's a scene in the movie that I do over and over again. I love it. So let's go ahead and get to If You're Not First, You're Last. And again, the first movie of his was the most overrated film of the 1990s. We gotta do it. We have to do it. He's got a very small part, but it's a very integral part, and he's so good at it. He is the perfect floppy-headed all boys school jerk in this film.
We need to set the scene. The early 90s went through a period where they were very invested in life at boys prep schools.
I think because a lot of writers went to boys prep schools, so I think
Dead Poets, there was Toy Soldiers, there was
School Ties.
There was
So we're talking about Son of a Woman, the movie that finally won the great Al Pacino's Oscar. And because he won the Oscar for this film, Al Pacino goes, "Oh, this is how I should act for the rest of my career."
It was awful.
This is what, yes. So basically, Chris O'Donnell won the part. So along with School Ties in this film, Chris O'Donnell was, before there was Matt Damon, there was Chris O'Donnell. And every male boy actor of his age group went for this role as a key role, and he plays the poor kid that's working hard to go through this all boys prep school, a bared man, all these things. This is the key to success. And right before the Thanksgiving holiday, Philip Seymour Hoffman and his two jerk friends play a prank on the headmaster. Basically.
Well, the friends pull it, and
Philip Seymour Hoffman
cover it up.
Right. Yeah. So the two of them see the three boys prank, and then the school secretary sees the two boys and goes, "Oh, I know they're out at that time," so they have to tell the headmaster.
They have to know, yeah.
Yeah. Who are the three boys that pulled off this prank? And Philip Seymour Hoffman is the rich kid. He says, "Don't worry, they're not going to do anything. Just call me. I'm going to be in, a ski lodge all Thanksgiving. Call me. We'll figure this out." And Chris O'Donnell has to make some money so he can go home for Christmas with presents. So he decides he's going to babysit this old war general, played by a blind Al Pacino. And again, it is every screaming part, like, that last 4 minutes of Devil's Advocate, that's the whole movie. He's just screaming, yelling.
So he plays, you should feel bad. It was like he's blind in accident. He's kind of shunted away to like the guest house, like a little guest shack.
Yeah.
None of his family wants him.
Right.
It's on his niece's property, and she and her husband, because they're just trying to get away. He's a loner. This man is so unlikable that when he laid out his plan, I was guessing the end. I was like, haha. And I am not a heartless person.
No.
But I just immediately, I could not like this guy. He didn't have, I even as they grow, I'm just like, oh.
But again,
I liked the relationship. And I even read reviews, and they were praising Al Pacino and like being like, "Well, Chris O'Donnell is," and I'm like, "Whoa, Chris O'Donnell played the character well. He's out of his league with this guy.
Yeah.
He has to, he's worried about his future. He has to deal. He was assured it was like this man naps a lot. don't worry, an easy like $400.
Right.
And instead he basically ends up in New York with this maniac
Right.
who does not drink any water unless it's the ice in his bourbon.
Yes. And he
And
keeps telling Chris O'Donnell, just narc on these three assholes. Are they your friends? Screw them. Just narc on them. The whole movie. Al Pacino's like, you gotta narc on these kids. Your future depends on it. So there's a couple famous scenes. There's a scene at the Thanksgiving table where he gets really ornery with his nephew, and then he pulls a gun on him and he's gonna shoot him. He's got him he's got a chokehold. There's a dance scene that's very famous. And then he lets the kid off at school, and Phillip Seymour Hoffman in his main scene is like, I didn't have my glasses on or my contacts, so I couldn't see. He's just a jerk. He's a rich jerk.
Well, his dad gets in, and Al Pacino's character had been telling him the whole movie, because George Wilson Jr. or something like that, or Willis Jr. And he's like, oh, so senior, and he knows all about this guy's dad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, there's a lot. I'm like, okay, sure, about all the rich parents that send their kids to preppy. I don't know how it works. And so basically, he makes. You get the impression that Phillip Seymour Hoffman, they're like, no, you're going to do it. They're not going to do anything because we're big donors. But he doesn't really want to rat them out. So he's like, well, I mean, I think it's these guys, but Charlie could actually.
Yeah, Charlie can see, right? So he can
see.
So Charlie says
to make
Charlie won't squeal.
Him to do it. Nope.
So Charlie won't squeal, and again, this is the big scene. This is like the famous. This is on Instagram. If you look, they just put in like just put in, Al Pacino. This is the thing they're going to show you first. Is this 10-minute yelling monologue, smashing a table with his blind stick. This is a horrible blind person who they tried to get him a dog and he was mean to the dog. The dog didn't like him, and he just says because the head of the school is gonna punish Charlie for not telling but not do anything to George. This is yelling, see, you're gonna reward George, and then there's a famous. He says the three kids' names and he says fuck you too. Like, oh, it's very famous. And again,
yeah, it's very 90s too, because again, besides the prep schools, there was always a thing where someone takes over with this monologue then at no point they're just like out of order, but we're not going to do anything else.
No, you smash
it. We won't call a bailiff or security.
Out of order. I'll show you what I put up.
Correct. The thing
it's insane.
The prank was funny because it was about how he has this vintage Jaguar.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, he got it from kissing the trustees' asses.
Right.
So
he's
a little weasel too.
Yeah, George.
He's good. He doesn't even, he knows that George's family can afford to, that they finance the thing, but Charlie's poorest. So and he said, if you tell us who it is, then I'll guarantee you get to Harvard. So that wasn't even the main. Like, there was like the honorable thing, but it was also like, well, it's not even because it's the honorable thing. It's because they're bribe. You'll never know if Charlie would have, like, the headmaster know if he would have done it anyways, or because of a bribe. So it's really, that's the honor at stake.
Right.
We're actually making this movie sound a lot better.
It's not this good. So then we get, he dies prematurely at the age of 47 of a drug overdose. A year or two after Heath Ledger dies. And he has he has a movie that comes out right as he dies, and then he has a movie that comes out after he dies. The one that comes out right during the death is Charlie Wilson's War, which is, there's 3 or 4 scenes that he's amazing in this movie. And again, he's just the chubbiest, he's the fattest he's ever been. He's gained weight for this role. He has black hair and this ridiculous mustache. He's playing a Greek CIA agent. And he has, like, literally, pause this right now, go on YouTube. We're already on YouTube if you're watching this, and watch him and John Slattery. John Slattery plays his boss in the CIA. And
scenes together.
It's the greatest. It's one of the great scenes. And again, this is an Aaron Sorkin written movie, directed by Mike Nichols, the man behind Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, the best movie we ever watched in this podcast. And The Graduate, and many, many other great films. And this is in his last movie. And John Slattery, like, expecting an apology and he's like, and John Slattery says this very famous line in the scene where he says, "I don't know why I didn't fire you," and Phillip Seymour Hoffman says, "Okay, you know exactly why you didn't fire me, because I know you're screwing Wilson's wife." I'm not even gonna acknowledge that. Yeah, you're acknowledging her in the ass every Tuesday at the blank hotel. And then he's like, "Get out of here." He says, "Fine, fine." He already broke. The reason he had to apologize was because he broke the window of his office.
Yeah.
So so there's this guy who's like fixing the window, and I don't know who the fuck this guy is. Like, Hoffman is off the rails in this scene. He's amazing. And I don't even know who this fucking guy is.
And he's also mad because he got passed over for
right.
a thing that he's like, "I would be the perfect person for this." I know.
In the 1980s, because of Reagan and because of certain people in that White House, CIA agents that were not American born were passed over. Whether they were Iranian or if they were all these things, and he was Greek, and he grabs the guy who's fixing the window. He grabs like a wrench, and he breaks the window again. He just breaks the window again, and he just talks about, "How dare you question my law?" Again, he talks in the scene about, like, "I have men who've tried to kill me, men who know how." Like, it is a masterpiece.
Good. It's just so high energy. Now, this is how you do an angry scene.
It is
without giving people a headache.
It's unbelievable. Him, and then the scene when he first meets Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks is playing this lecherous senator who he just keeps winning in Texas because he keeps giving them pork.
Oh my God. I gotta say, I was not expecting to see Tom Hanks' butt.
Yeah.
But there it was in Charlie Wilson's War.
Yeah, and it's just, and then they have this first scene. Everyone that works in Tom Hanks's office is a young, busty woman, including, shocker again, Amy Adams. Again, they keep running into each other, and just all these chicks with like Bambi.
She's probably the most conservatively dressed, because every other woman looks like he just went to the Playboy Mansion.
This is 80s, like
I'll take her.
And they had this scene where he's being accused of doing cocaine in Vegas with this Barbie woman that he knows, and he keeps sending Hoffman out of the room. This is the first time he's been in because Hoffman is an expert on Iran and Iraq, and he keeps sending him out of the room, and he gave him this beautiful bottle of whiskey or scotch, and Phil Seymour Hoffman says, "You need to contact the limousine rider because he would verify if you were doing cocaine. He'd be the best person for you to get." He's like, "How do you know that? Were you listening at the door? That's a thick door. How would you?" He goes, "Don't be an idiot. I got a bug in the bottle of whiskey." So it just sets this relationship, and then Julia Roberts is in the movie, and it's just this amazing movie that really talks about why we had the Iraq War in 1992, and why we had.
It's a very interesting movie. It's an amazing movie. Like, I was looking it up. I'm like, is this senator for real? Because it starts his introduction is in a hot tub with like strippers and ex-playmates. Yes. And they're like, "Oh, should a senator be in here with strippers and cocaine?" He's like, "No, I shouldn't." Bye. And he gets out of the tub, and I'm like, "Oh God, Tom Hanks' butt."
Yeah. And then Julia Roberts
I just saw Dad's butt. No.
Like, Julia Roberts plays this very rich Texas woman who has sex with Tom Hanks in the movie at one point. And then Phil Seymour Hoffman tries to pick her up, and she's this woman that is just deeply invested in the Middle East. And again, it's this movie that really sets up why, because all Tom Hanks wants to do is he wants to give the Afghanistan and Iraqi people weapons so that they can fight the Russians. Kind of in the same way we're doing now with Ukraine. It's very oddly, very prescient. But that leads to the Al-Qaeda, it leads to literally 9/11 and all these things, that because we gave up on them, because Tom Hanks wanted to continue to fund them and give them money. And America said, "We won that. That's over."
Yeah.
And because of that, they felt like we gave up on them. And that is why everything that happened in the 21st century happened. And then the movie that came out posthumously for him is the third of the Hunger Game movies.
The second he was in. And
he was in the second one, but then
the second one's pre-humus. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
The third is
and he plays basically like this political figure that wants to use the great Jennifer Lawrence as a symbol to enact a revolution. And he's understated in the movie. He's definitely going for something that's very interesting to him. And that, to me, those movies could have been the American and it's probably gonna become that because now we're having the prequels now that are coming out for the Hunger Games. I love the first Hunger Games is a very good movie,
I
and the other
really
ones,
enjoyed it. Again, very long movies.
yes,
Like that was one of the. I'm like, I did. It's like 5 hours if I want to watch 2 movies a day for most of
yeah.
his stuff.
But
But
Jennifer
I
Lawrence
did
is
catch
just
Catching Fire, which he has the bigger
yeah, he's
role
basically
in
this
than
guy
Parks
who
and
works
Modern
for
Day.
Plutarch. He works for the government, and he's setting up these games as being the quarter quell, and having all these ex winners come back, and it's just
Great
upsetting. It's
cast.
this unbelievable cast. Again, Julianne
Uh,
Moore plays this duplicitous leader of the revolution. You have Jeffrey Wright, who's just
love Jeffrey Wright ever since seeing him in Basket.
eating up
Um,
scenery.
Donald Sutherland.
Other Sutherland is
Just
amazing. Um,
that big. That is someone that is definitely a future episode. I
yes,
love
Wes
Donald Sutherland.
Bentley, just all these great actors. Jennifer
Stanley
Lawrence again.
Tucci
The Tooch.
plays. Oh, who did you say he's based on? His
Um,
character?
yeah,
Like
he's the
who
the British talk
he's
show
he's a
host.
talk show. Oh, Graham Norton.
Graham Norton.
And I was getting like Ryan Seacrest vibes, except I was actually enjoying
Right.
Caesar a little more. But I could see, yeah, the Graham Norton one makes more sense.
Lenny
I didn't
Kravitz.
even realize it was Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, Lenny Kravitz is great in it. Woody Harrelson, probably his best acting ever, is in that movie.
Elizabeth Banks,
Elizabeth
love
Banks.
her
Yes.
so much in this movie. I genuinely enjoy Elizabeth Banks to start.
Yeah.
But just her character's arc throughout it.
Right. But they kept having to say in the fourth movie
wonderful.
that Plutarch was off doing this, working here, doing that. They had to kind of explain why he's not in the movie, but he clearly was going to be this big thing, and you could tell in just interviews how much Jennifer Lawrence was like in awe of him. Because as good of an actress as she is, and she should have 2 Oscars right now, she should have 1 Best Actress and 1 Best Supporting Actress for American Hustle. She is
person in there.
And I'm very proud of her. I'm very happy. I say I'm proud of her because she's younger than me, and I feel like I own her career. I'm very proud of her for making a silly comedy and like Don't Look Up and all these things. She's just doing what she should be doing right now after Mother. God, Jenner, why'd you do that? But you could tell that she learned something from him because he's so understated in that movie. He's so like it's a different feel with Seymour Hoffman. Again, the third one was shot mostly after his death. He shot some things, and it's just a great loss. It really is. I would love to know what movies he would have done, what roles he would have played, who would he replace. It's a lot of the same way River Phoenix. Like I look at River Phoenix's career, and I'm like, because he was supposed to be in Interviews with a Vampire.
Yeah.
And it's the Christian Slater part, and like the things he could have done, working against Matt Damon in movies. Like imagine him in like Rounders. Or like would he have gotten the Ed Norton role in Presumed Innocent and all these things? Like just the loss.
I'm wondering because, like I told you, I'm like when he, like Philip Seymour Hoffman is not an unattractive guy.
No.
When he has no beard or anything, you're just kind of like, okay. Like you would sit up with your friend and you'd be like, look, he's a nice guy. He's a nice looking guy. What do you want? He's nice looking. But when he has his, like when I was watching his Sounders, this is when I messaged you. He has his beard and he's kind of like, talking to his Laura Linney sister.
Yeah.
I'm like, I see David Harbour. Do I think Philip Seymour Hoffman would have done Violent Night? I do not.
Right.
I'm not even sure he would have done Stranger Things. I'm like, but they have a lot of similar mannerisms. And there's a style. So I'm actually kind of interested in seeing where David Harbour would go. If he'll ever do something that I would be like, oh, I could see Philip Seymour Hoffman doing it, or if it's just a superficial thing.
Right.
But
just the loss of I would assume he would have won another Oscar at some point in his career. He's my favorite actor of that era. If you ask me, it's and to see his son play a key part in Licorice Pizza, and to see that we get to have kind of these things. And
wait, was his son the main character?
Yes.
I did not pick up on that. I saw that on the plane. That was an interesting movie.
And again, I don't think I at some point, he kind of, because in 2014, it was the beginning of the prestige TV era. Like Mad Men had already come out, Breaking Bad, but there's a prestige TV show he would have made for HBO or something. He would have, and his ability to play is what I miss most about him. His ability to say, there's definitely movies where he was like, I like that part, but I like this part better. And he chose the better part for him. Like you look at Magnolia, you look at the Master. He went from between being the lead to like fifth in the movie so effortlessly, and he got to do a lot of things he wanted to do. And it's there was something missing. And for his son now to have this amazing career that he's gonna have.
Very good actor in that.
He's unbelievable in that movie, and it's a Paul Thomas Anderson film, and he's getting other parts and stuff, and he's it's the great law. Like I don't think there's a month that's gone by that I have not watched, if not a whole Philip Seymour Hoffman movie, but at least a scene. Mm-hmm. Like I'll watch that Charlie Wilson's War scene once a month. If it had like 3 less swears, and I would show it to my drama class, I really would. And again, just every one of his characters was sad. There was a set, even when he's hilarious in Along Came Polly, even when he's the villain in a movie, a Mission Impossible movie, there's this impossible sadness at the edge of it. That none of his characters go home and are proud of themselves. Like even Freddy, as much as Freddy really, I think Freddy loved who he was next to Jude Law. But did Freddy go home and say, I'm a great guy? I don't think so. I don't think any of his characters ever went home and were completely satisfied with how their day went. And that's a incredibly sad thing. He brought that to every character. He brought this, I could have done better. I could have been better in every one of his films. And it's just a crime that he died at 47. It's a crime that he never got to remake Marty. It's a crime that he didn't get to do a Will Ferrell comedy. Like one of the things that I'm really like, Ryan Gosling's another actor like him who again kind of goes between leading and supporting roles really well. To see him do The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe and be that funny, and to watch him absolutely destroy in Barbie this last week, I was happy for him because he clearly, when Eva Mendes did The Other Guys and got to work with other guys, got to work with Will Ferrell. Ava said, "You just can't listen. All I ask is you don't come down to set and just bother Will Ferrell all day because you love Will Ferrell." He said, "I would never do that." He literally came down and said, "Honey, you left your lunch." He's like, "I never bring a lunch." So there's this thing with Philip Seymour Hoffman where he absolutely loved doing, to do Along Came Polly for him had to be a treat. To do certain roles like that, again, I'm sure he loved doing Doubt, but he's like Daniel Day-Lewis. There's a podcaster who talks about Daniel Day-Lewis and says he should have done more movies, and he should have done like Ransom, the Mel Gibson movie. And it's just like laughable because every time Daniel Day-Lewis acts, he puts a piece of his bone marrow in a machine and he crushes it down. And you can't, you watch everyone's performance, he leaves something of himself off. He's just it's like Voldemort leaving the horror cruxes around. He's like, that's what Daniel did, and that's what Philip Seymour Hoffman did. He left a piece of himself in every one of those movies. There's a piece of his soul in every one of those. There's a piece of Daniel Day-Lewis in every one of those movies, and you can't do that and not be lesser for it. And that's what the drugs did for him. It tried to fill that void of like giving that much to acting. Sean Penn talks about film is too important. We can't just do it. We have to give of ourselves. And actors like him and actors like Philip Seymour Hoffman and Daniel Day-Lewis, they gave us so much. Like, you can't do The Master, you can't do Doubt, you can't do Capote without losing a bit of yourself in it. And Heath Ledger too with the Joker. It's just these performances that leave you lesser for it, but you wouldn't change the outcome. Okay, so next month, after that, I'm hoping you're all crying now. I would imagine so. Next month, we're going to be doing Bob Fosse.
That's right. Okay.
Yes, Bob Fosse, the director of film. We will get, of course, into his Broadway career, but it's time to do director, and I think Bob Fosse is kind of perfect. I just did Pippin as a musical, and Bob Fosse famously brought that to Broadway. He is the only man in the history of anything to win Best Director at the Oscars, at the Tonys, and at the Emmys in the same year. It's the greatest run of anyone ever. So the first we'll be doing is Sweet Charity, starring the great Shirley MacLaine, and the last one we'll be talking about we'll definitely hit All That Jazz, but we'll probably end up with Star 80, his film about a Playboy bunny who was murdered by her
On.
boyfriend, starring Eric Roberts. An unbelievable film. So that's next month. I hope you all had a great summer. I'm headed back into school
And
starting Wednesday. So again, Bob Fosse next month. Have a great rest of the month.
bye.